Welcome everyone, this is Honest Restart, and this time we're talking about when we can maybe see the next big Nintendo Direct. It's been over a year since we've gone a full Nintendo Direct. We've gone a whole bunch of partner showcases and mini directs and different things throughout the year instead. But that sort of begs the question when we can maybe see an actual full Nintendo Direct. Could it be around the corner? Will we have to wait until next year or somewhere in between? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Now before we jump into things, I want to quickly talk about my social media. There's a Twitter page, a Discord community, a Patron page, and a Twitch channel. If you are interested in any of that, check it all out. It's linked in the description below. And of course, if you also like what you're seeing here, subscribe. So, as stated earlier, yes, it's been over a year since we've gone a full Nintendo Direct. So what exactly is a full Nintendo Direct? Because that's what we're referring to here when we're talking about when this can maybe happening. So a full Nintendo Direct, in my opinion, is a presentation, and the length doesn't necessarily dictate what it is, but it's a presentation that sort of gives us information about big, high-profile Nintendo games that are coming for a while, not just within the next couple of months, but for the next year or so. For example, the E3 2019 Direct showed Animal Crossing, which came out at the end of the fiscal year. It was 9 months beforehand. It talked about things to come out all throughout the holidays, but also talked about Breath of the Wild 2, and that still hasn't come out yet. A big Nintendo Direct is going to highlight things to come out throughout the year, and maybe other couple little things that are really major that Nintendo wants us to know about that are coming later down the road. That's what a big Nintendo Direct is. A Nintendo Direct Mini, on the other hand, will give us some big announcements potentially, but usually what it's going to do is just tell us about things that are coming within the next few months, like for that quarter of the year. They're not going to be telling us about things to come out all throughout the year. Sometimes they might give us updates, but for the most part it's going to be focused on things that are coming out within the next 3 or 4 months. And then the Nintendo Direct Mini partner showcases, which I deem as different than a Direct Mini because Nintendo calls it a partner showcase on top of the whole Direct Mini naming. These little presentations, they're shorter and they don't really have any first-party games at all. They are just third-party game presentations that tell us a little bit more about some third-party offerings that Nintendo has on the horizon. And they aren't necessarily around the corner, some of them are, but others are coming out the year after. For example, Monster Hunter Rise is coming out March 2021, and that was announced in the most recent partner showcase. In the first partner showcase, they announced Shin Megami Tensei 5 and the 3 Remaster, and those are also coming out in 2021, and that partner showcase was back, I believe, at the end of July. Point is, the partner showcases just give us a little bit of information about third-party stuff, and that's pretty much what they are for. The Direct Minis, they give us some major announcements from first and third parties, but they're usually just focusing on things that come out within the next 3 or 4 months. And then the full Nintendo Directs tend to have a larger scope and go beyond just the next 3 or 4 months. They can go even beyond a year sometimes, but usually they outline what's to come for the rest of the year. So those are pretty much the differences between a full Nintendo Direct, a Nintendo Direct Mini, and a Nintendo Direct Mini partner showcase. And this year, all we've gotten is one Nintendo Direct Mini, a number of Direct Mini partner showcases, and then we got the Mario Direct, and besides that, we've just gotten a whole bunch of little trailer announcements throughout the year. But this year is a very unique situation because of the pandemic. It's changed everything. This is not a normal year. At the same time, though, we should also consider that Nintendo has stated that they are looking into how to handle Directs moving forward, but they do want to keep them around because they have been very successful. They are not going away, but Nintendo may consider different ways to present that information. And I believe we've already seen that to some extent. The partner showcases are a different form of the Direct. They are giving us a little bit of third-party information in bits and pieces, and I think that's pretty good if we know about the other Nintendo things that are to come into the future. And of course, throughout this year, we've gotten a whole bunch of shadow drops or just trailer drops of different things, announcing things without any sort of prior notice. For example, Hyrule Warriors, or this Kirby game that was just announced recently that was leaked like a day or two beforehand. Things like that have been happening throughout the year. Now, because it's been so long since a full Nintendo Direct, some people are arguing that maybe we'll never see a full Nintendo Direct again. And I don't think that's the case. If that was really the case, then why would Nintendo even use the Nintendo Direct branding if the Nintendo Direct was never going to happen again? They wouldn't refer to the Direct Mini Partner Showcase as a partner showcase of a Direct Mini if there wasn't going to be Direct Minis. We had a Direct Mini this year, and they wouldn't call those Direct Minis if they weren't meant to be a mini version of a main Direct. I think if they were going to be going away from the Nintendo Direct, the full Nintendo Direct, then they wouldn't be using the Nintendo Direct branding anymore. They would go with something else, and they haven't. The fact that they are calling the partner showcases Direct mini partner showcases, that to me tells me that they are still using the Direct branding, so we will see more in the future. But this year, because of the pandemic, things have been very unique, so Nintendo has been experimenting with different ways to present their information. So let's say I am right, and there will be a full Nintendo Direct in the future. How long will we have to wait before that happens? That's hard to say. I'd love to see it sooner, but at this stage, at this point in the year, I don't think it's coming anytime soon. Now, some people were hoping that maybe there were signs pointing towards a Direct right around the corner, because a whole bunch of little things have been happening lately. There's a Smash ad that's expiring, which implies that a Smash character reveal could be around the corner. Most of the Smash Ultimate reveals happen during Directs or Direct Minis, so I would say it makes sense to expect Smash reveals during Directs most of the time. But then also there is a recent Kirby battle game that was just announced that was leaked a day or two ago, and then there have been ratings for other things such as, for example, Bravely Default 2, and there are still other things to talk about that haven't been announced yet, or at least given release dates, for example, like Doom Eternal, and we still haven't gotten news about Breath of the Wild 2 this year. So there's definitely things that need to be talked about for sure, but does it have to happen in an Nintendo Direct? I don't think so, not at this point. If you look at what's been happening over the last few weeks, we've been getting a whole bunch of information. By the time you see this video, you may have already seen the Tokyo Game Show, or parts of it, where they're talking about Monster Hunter Rise and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. That's more Nintendo news right there. Two major games that are coming to the Nintendo Switch in the next few months are going to be talked about during this presentation or this show. So I would consider that the major news for this week. But then last week we got news from a partner showcase announcing Monster Hunter Rise, Monster Hunter Stories, and another horror game coming to Switch. And the week before that was the reveal for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. And then the week before that was the reveal for 3D All-Stars and 3D World Deluxe and other Mario things in the Mario Anniversary Direct. And then the week before that was another partner showcase, and then the week before that was an Indie World showcase. We've gotten a whole bunch of news in the last few weeks. It's been crazy. It's basically like Nintendo had an Nintendo Direct, but it was spread throughout 6 or 7 weeks or so. That's what it looks like is happening. So perhaps next week or the week after we get another announcement, and it's for the next big Smash character, and then the week after that we get news about the Pokemon DLC, and then maybe at that point we get another partner showcase, and by that point we'll have had almost 2 months, if not more than 2 months, of consecutive weeks of Nintendo news, official Nintendo news, and that's gonna have been enough information provided by Nintendo to satiate fans or hold things over until next year, in my opinion. I don't think Nintendo is going to have a big Nintendo Direct announcing and talking about a whole bunch of things for 2021 when they're still trying to sell things for 2020. So in my opinion, we won't be seeing a big Nintendo Direct until after the release of these major games for the holidays, especially Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I don't think we're going to see Breath of the Wild 2 until that game comes out. It's just a short while from now. They're going to be focusing on talking about that game, marketing that game, and once that game comes out, then Nintendo can move on to talking about other things, including Breath of the Wild 2. But that's with the assumption that Nintendo doesn't have a whole bunch of more announcements to make for 2020. And maybe you could argue that they do still have some announcements to be made. We don't really have any major December games coming out from Nintendo. Bravely Default 2 was just rated in Australia. Maybe that game's going to get an announcement soon. Maybe it is. Maybe it is coming out in December. But it also might be coming out in January. That's also a possibility. And maybe it's even longer or later down the road. That's also a possibility. But let's say Bravely Default 2 is coming out this December. With that game, a Nintendo published game, even though it's being developed by Square, that's maybe something Nintendo would want to have in a Direct, right? Well, under normal circumstances, I would agree. But look at what's been happening all throughout the year. Pikmin 3 Deluxe was a Twitter, YouTube trailer drop. So was Paper Mario. So was Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. The only first-party Nintendo news we've gotten in a Direct in the second half of 2020 has been the Mario Anniversary Direct, and that was more a 35th anniversary celebration for Mario. It wasn't really making a whole bunch of new announcements for Mario games, although there was a few announcements for Mario games, don't get me wrong, but you understand my point here. Everything else has not been brought to us in a Direct. So I don't think Nintendo would have bothered to announce Kirby now if a Direct was right around the corner. I don't think they would have announced Hyrule Warriors a few weeks ago if they didn't plan on having a Direct anytime soon. So I feel like at this point, it's too late to have a Direct to focus on things to be coming out in 2020. And even in the partner showcases where it's just third-party announcements, most of those third-party announcements are for games in 2021. I think at this point in the year, we're really just getting announcements for 2021. Maybe there's a couple other little things that can be announced for 2020, but for the most part, it's 2021 things. In other words, if you look at the lineup so far for 2020, it's been pretty much filled out by Nintendo. They don't really have that much more announcements to be made for 2020, and they're probably not going to have a big Nintendo Direct talking about awesome 2021 things to outshine the 2020 things. They're going to focus on that, and once they're done with most of those releases, then maybe they'll start thinking about the next big presentation to talk about things for 2021. So when will that happen? I think the earliest it can happen is December, but it might even be in January or even in February. Nintendo does a great job of making us wait for information, especially during these pandemic times. So I wouldn't put it past them to really make us wait a very long time, more than maybe we should be waiting. But I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic and say that I think we'll get a Direct by January, early February at the latest in my opinion. Now why am I saying that? Well, we know Monster Hunter Rise is coming up to close the fiscal year. Nintendo's putting a lot of marketing into this. They even had a Monster Hunter specific Nintendo Direct. They announced the partner showcase a day in advance and it was being live streamed. That's way more than they did for the other partner showcases, and that's because Monster Hunter was the big reveal for that presentation. It looks like Capcom and Nintendo are working really well together here. They really want to push this game. This could be the biggest third-party release for the Nintendo Switch for its entire life cycle, or at least one of them. It's going to sell a lot, and it's coming out to close the fiscal year. And there have been many reports and different things hinting at a potential Switch revision in early 2021. If you look at the years where Nintendo has launched hardware, they have a lot more games to come out during that time. In 2017, we saw the Nintendo Switch, and that was arguably the best year ever from Nintendo. Splatoon, Mario Kart Deluxe, Breath of the Wild, ARMS, Mario Odyssey, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, it was a big year. And then in 2019 we saw a Switch Lite, and the months surrounding the Switch Lite's release we had a whole bunch of games as well. Pokemon Sword and Shield, Luigi's Mansion, Link's Awakening Remake, Dragon Quest XI's, Fire Emblem Three Houses, Daemon X Machina, Astral Chain. There was a lot of games that came out around that period as well. And we've been getting reports that have been saying not just that a Switch revision is coming out next year, but that Nintendo's going to be backing it up with a whole bunch of games. Last week I had a video talking about a whole bunch of games that could be coming out in 2021, and I'll pull up that list here. That's somewhat my expectations for 2021. Some of those may not make it, some of those may, and other things that I haven't even been talked about will be in the year as well. Point is, it sort of shows how many games could be coming up next year from Nintendo, or at least their big third-party partners. There's a lot of things coming out next year. It's going to be a really big year, so they're definitely going to want to talk about some things really soon, and especially if they're going to have a lot of games coming out around the release of for a potential Switch revision, perhaps around the fiscal year when Monster Hunter is coming out. Maybe they're going to have a Direct a little bit sooner. 3D World Deluxe plus Bowser's Fury is coming out in February. They want to give us another update on that game before then. It may just be a trailer, but it also may be an Nintendo Direct, of course. And then at some point, Nintendo's going to want to start talking about Breath of the Wild 2 again. And once Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity comes out in November, it's then free game. There is the Game Awards in December. Maybe Nintendo starts talking about Breath of the Wild then. Certainly possible we could get a trailer then updating us on the game, and then hopefully in a month or two later down the road we get another look at Breath of the Wild 2 in a Nintendo Direct. I do think it's fair to note that the pandemic has been going on, and in early 2021 we're still going to be feeling the effects of that to some extent, so it may not be the case that Nintendo will return to the norm and start giving us full Nintendo Directs, but as we've seen with the last few weeks, Nintendo has definitely been giving us a lot more information. It does look like they're starting to get back to the flow of things, and hopefully by early 2021, they can start giving us that full Nintendo Direct, especially if 2021 is going to be a really big year. The best way for Nintendo to really hype up fans and build up that anticipation and provide the best spotlight for their really big announcements would be a full Nintendo Direct, one that's been overdue, one that we haven't gone in a long time. It's been over a year, and by early 2021, it's going to be even longer. And with the games that may be coming out next year, like a Breath of the Wild 2, like a Monster Hunter Rise, like a Shin Megami Tensei, like a new Pokemon game, like maybe a new Mario game, or even Metroid Prime Trilogy, there's definitely a lot of reason to showcase these things during Nintendo's biggest type of presentation, the Nintendo Direct. So hopefully, I'm right, and we see it sometime early 2021, or maybe we get really lucky and it comes out at the end of 2020. But we'll see. Nintendo's done a great job of making us wait this long. They may find a way to make us wait a little bit longer. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is On This Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.